Hello and welcome everyone. This is Nidhi from Designhill, your host for today. I hope each one of you and your family are keeping well and safe in these testing times. I would like to welcome you all for this session where we are going to talk about the best practices to create high performing content with authentic influencers this year. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike, who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists. Moving ahead, let me introduce our speakers for today. We have with us Valerie Morris. Valerie is a digital marketing strategist, speaker, author, and consultant, helping busy experts share their brand message and expertise with the world with the power of authority building content. She helps them position them as the leaders in the field with the power of digital marketing, social media, and strategic content. Valerie, please say hi to the audiences.
Good morning. Hello. It's nice to see everyone.
Amazing to have you here with us, Valerie. Up next, we have Joe Cox. He was born in analog, raised in digital, and found a career on the internet. He schooled in branding by Red Bull North America and Coca-Cola. Now he is building a community of pop marketers, talking with the thinkers and makers of popular culture in the Pop Marketing Podcast to teach others how to tap into zeitgeist to supercharge their ideas and unlock the creativity hidden within the media we love. Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me, everybody. It's morning here, so good morning here, but good afternoon and good night to wherever you're at.
All right, amazing. Next, we have Camila Hernandez. She's a trilingual communications professional with integrated marketing communications experience. From being an expert at handling public relations to helping your businesses achieve communications goal, she's a perfect package. Her goal is to help businesses build a mediagenic brand, boost their social media marketing strategy, and gain revenue growth. Camila.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here and happy to see everyone here on the panel. Super excited to have this chat.
Lovely to have you here with us. Next, we have Amy Choi, a savvy digital marketer. Amy has extensive experience in digital and partnership marketing. She's an expert at conceptualizing innovative, integrated marketing campaigns that drive buzz and build brand equity. Her enthusiasm for constructing creative digital and social strategic solutions for her clients is dually authentic and inspiring, a rarity in this industry. Amy.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about all things influencer marketing today.
So are we. Last but not the least, we have Faye Chappell, award-winning global business strategist, entrepreneur, and master speaker trainer. Faye has been helping multinational corporations and global entrepreneurs create, launch, and expand their brands on a global scale for over 30 years. She has worked with multinationals to develop global entry plans, operations, and strategic plans, launching new brands, new retail concepts, franchise systems, and much more. Faye.
Great to be here, guys. I'm excited to get started.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much, each one of you, all our speakers, to be here, to take out time from your schedule and join us today for this event. Great. So before we start the session, we have a couple of announcements to be made for our attendees. Guys, we are giving away certificates as usual to all the attendees who would stick till the end of the session. So please brace yourself and stay tuned till the very end, because that's only when you get your certificate. Also, don't forget to take a screenshot of this event and post it on Twitter. Tag our speakers' Twitter handles, which will be there in the chat box by my colleague, Robin. One lucky winner will have a chance to win a gift card worth $50. So, and we will also be sharing an exclusive coupon code with everyone at the end of the session, using which you can avail 15% discount on the logo maker service at Designhill. So please stay tuned. All right, so before we start the session, let's quickly take a look at what Designhill is all about.
The thing I love about filmmaking is that every part of the process, you have to invite and bring in a team of people to share your vision with. I love that you can have an idea, you can write a script, but in order to make any type of film, you need at least one to hundreds of other people. New in Jersey is a television show that I've been working on for the past year. I've always wanted to make New Jersey what Stephen King made Maine, and tell these really weird small stories in New Jersey. When you're pitching a show or a movie, it's really important to take that time and make what you're presenting feel real and authentic. I was looking for design materials that can help explain my vision and help brand what I'm trying to sell. So I used Designhill's logo maker, and it was super easy. They asked me a couple questions, I answered them, and then I picked from a handful of designs that I liked certain aesthetics about. And then within a few seconds, I had tons of options to mix and match and choose from. It was really easy. When you're pitching a show, you don't always have your budget worked out. For me, this was an awesome option. Designhill's logo maker was really affordable. So I don't have to put a ton of money in, and I get the assets that I need to make my job easier and more successful. In addition to the logo, they also offer things like t-shirts, business cards, and social media kits. I can honestly say that thanks to Designhill, I now have the assets and the materials I need to go into a meeting and feel my best.
All right, that was all about Designhill, and now we are all set to start the session. We will also be taking up questions during the session, guys. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the question section on your screen. All right, so perhaps the most asked questions by our registrants was, about, it is the most basic yet important question, which is about, researching, identifying, and, zeroing down on the influencers, the right influencer for your business. So we're going to start very basic, and I'm going to start with Faye. Faye, please share some tips as to the basic tips that a marketer should keep in mind while searching for influencers and basically convincing them as well. You need to unmute yourself, please. We still can't hear you. You have not unmuted yourself. Or
Okay, have you unmuted me now? Yes. Okay. So there's so many agencies out there, and obviously lots of opportunities, but I think what you need to understand in the marketplace right now is that it's not as easy as jumping on one of these boards and saying, oh, they have 100,000 followers, I'll click them, because that's old school now, right? And just because someone has 100,000 followers, it doesn't mean they're right for you. You're really looking for somebody that has your audience, right? But you need to do a little bit of research. It's just like saying to, somebody who perhaps is targeting 14-year-old boys that want basketball paraphernalia. The brand might go after a basketball player that 14-year-olds don't think is very cool. So, you can't just rely on boards. You have to actually talk to that audience and see who they think an influencer is.
All right. So I'm gonna ask it in a different way. And Joe, I'd like to ask this to you. At Designhill, we have a lot of early age startups and entrepreneurs. So when a startup is not very well known, how should they reach out to an influencer and convince them? Because influencer would also like to invest their time into a business which is known well in the market. So how does that partnership work, and how should startups approach it?
It's tough for a startup. It's tough for somebody when you don't have your brand completely kicking yet, and you don't have the notoriety, and a lot of times you're still building out who you are. And it of course matters what vertical you're in and what the product or service is that you're selling. But a couple of tips or tricks, right, that I've known that startups have done in the past, and it's similar to getting press as well, is that look who is talking about products of like yours. Look who's out there in talking and using those products, right? Not yours, because yours may not even be in people's hands yet, but who has the interest and what problem does your product solve? right? Like you start to have to go into these zones when you're researching, right? To be able to say, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to just search for my brand name or my business name or my vendor. So what else am I going to go out there and look for? So it's really just, you know, a lot of times I'll just build out circles of different keywords and different things that I'm out there looking for to see who has the most interest in those things and who's already talking about those.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to add on to Joe also. I feel like, you know, I work with many major brands who have big budgets for influencer marketing campaigns, but sometimes they are smaller brands that are just starting. And to Joe's point of identifying influencers that have that niche interest, but I think part of it, right, especially when you're a startup, is reaching out to these influencers and showcasing, you know, not only what your product is, but what is your brand story? Because I think a lot of people want to fall in love with the, you know, the brand values, the mission, like the story behind the product. And I think that's a way for you to sort of build brand advocacy over time. And later on, if they, you know, go, like you said, once they have the product in their hands, you can sort of then start to maybe potentially see organic coverage on social media, et cetera, and really have them be an advocate. But it does take that longer period of time, right, to sort of invest in them and build that trust and relationship as well.
Absolutely. Building relationship and trust is actually the core. And Valerie, I would like to ask you, how do you describe this complete cycle of, you know, finding, identifying, and convincing the influencers? How does the complete cycle looks like to you?
Well, you know, honestly, on my end, the research is probably the most important part, and not just going out and searching for them, but then watching to see, you know, how are they engaging, kind of stalk them for a couple of weeks and really don't rush the process, but like see how are people really engaging with their content in real time. What kinds of content are they consistently putting out? And then reach out and find out some of the information about what the relationship might look like and what would be involved on both parties, what the expectations would be, what the deliverables would be, and be clear on what you're getting from the experience, what they're getting from the experience. But that research piece is vital, I think, just, you know, and it's just that digital stalking to make sure that they're the right person. And one of the other things that I like to do is I like to have a few different people kind of help stalk so that we can kind of come back and say, all right, this was our pool of influencers we were considering. You know, where does everyone feel? How does everyone feel about that? And get a feel for, you know, who is the right fit. And I'll just mention, you know, a lot of times it's the smaller folks these days that, you know, they've got a big following, but they're smaller. They have more of that niche market that you can really get that traction in influencer marketing. So sometimes it's really important to do that research because you can see how does that specific audience respond versus the giant masses.
Yeah, I think that's really key, Valerie, because, you know, what you notice is some of the smaller influencers, their followers are more engaged, right? And that's your number one thing you can look at in their feed is there can be people with a lot of followers, but they're not engaged. And once you see them engaging and interacting, then you know you've got somebody.
Yes, so it is actually one of the misconceptions that, you know, a big following may not crack it for you, but good engagement can, right? So, Camila, I would like to ask this to you. You know, when you actually said that you got to research very well for the influencers, and there's this term called manual review of an influencer, where, you know, you visit the profile wherever it is, you know, on any platform. You go there, you let's say on Instagram, you check out the number of followers, obviously the engagement rates, account mentions, and keywords, and many more things. So these are the vanity metrics that, you know, marketers generally keep in mind. But you know, this can also get redundant. You know, it may not always solve the purpose. So what more should be kept in mind? Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so the way that as a team, we kind of work together, it depends on the campaign goals. So really it's focused on what is the need. Is it are you looking for influencers to build a community or to build an audience? So really, where are you trying to go? So like everyone has mentioned here, influencers that have a larger following tend to have a less engaged audience. However, they do get a larger reach on their story mentions, or perhaps they have a more active community when they go live or do those type of things. Or maybe we just like the way that the bigger influencer creates content because they have a larger team behind them. They may have a photographer, an editor. So if you're looking to augment your content marketing pieces that are going to be utilized in your ads or in your email marketing, perhaps we want to go to influencers that have a larger following. But if you're looking to build that trust and give you product reviews or create the more no edit type of content, you might want to go to a smaller influencer that people like their funny or wittiness because they're still comfortable in being themselves, right? So it depends on that. Also, we take a look into influencers who have mentioned our brand or that have tagged us. And even if they don't have a strong following, but they do have a community that interacts with them in the way that they're asking them about let's say in my niche or my world, which is skincare, where it's about ingredients or it's about how does it react on people with oily skin or sensitive skin or combination skin. If they have that knowledge that they're able to provide it back, maybe we use them for a piece of content and then also for a product review, and then have them hop on a live, whether it's Facebook or IG, and then maybe even do a panel talk with them. So it's just finding the right person to be the spokesperson for your brand.
Amazing thoughts, and I'm sure that our attendees are taking notes, writing down their notes, a diary or something. So, this session, I realized when I was going through the questions that our, attendees, our registrant asked us, is going to be more about, busting the myths about influencer marketing. And the next thing that comes on the list is that, if you speak about the spectrum of influencer marketing in terms of platforms, the first place that comes to mind is Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. And somehow the general perception of influencer marketing has been limited to Instagram or Facebook or so, which is not true at all. I would love if you can share more on this, that what about the other platforms that still remain less discovered but actually can do wonders for an influencer marketing strategy. And Valerie, we would love to start with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last week I was on another panel and we were talking about some of the latest features on Twitter. And it's amazing to me how Twitter continues to just be this kind of just a little bit off of the spotlight, but it's still such a dominant force. And depending upon your industry, it's very, very active. And so that's a place where I've seen influencers do really well, especially if they've built up their following in a very authentic way versus just going after, the follow for follow or kind of doing some spammy things. But if they are really using their authentic voice and have built up a following in a legitimate way over the years, it's really a helpful place. I've also seen LinkedIn being a fabulous space. It's perhaps my favorite social media platform for the sense that the people that are on there, when they are on LinkedIn, they are very engaged and they are usually very serious about their business or their professional career. And so when they're on there, they're very hyper focused. They're not just sitting there scrolling to kill time. They are spending intentional time on LinkedIn. And so, if you're in, the tech space or you're in a very high business to business type of space, you can really do some damage in a good way on LinkedIn. And what I love about LinkedIn too is that the algorithm seems to be just a little bit kinder to you and almost a few years behind some of the restrictions that some of the other platforms have put. So you can get a lot more organic traction on LinkedIn compared to some of the other platforms. Now, of course, if your audience is not on LinkedIn, it's not worth the time. But if your audience is, it's a great place to spend your efforts when maybe Instagram and Facebook are a little frustrating for you.
Right. And like you said, that it is also about where your audience is. So for example, if you have a business in HR services, professional consultancy, then LinkedIn is the place for you. And cut to, if you are into fashion industry, then Instagram obviously is the right place for you. So that way, you know, industry wise, it also matters. Joe, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is weirdly just back there, right? Like it is, and there's still no better place for those kinds of conversations. So it's something I watch a lot, but it's also got a lot of, there's also a lot of noise, and I agree that LinkedIn seems to be definitely more focused. But you really can't deny that. I mean, I truly believe that gaming in general is really just social media, or will be social, right? Like if you look at Roblox, if you look at the things that are coming up, gaming is beyond, I think, what most brands understand in the size and the social interaction that gamers are having. So I would call out too that streaming in any aspect, right? Look, you have people that are so engaged with their audiences. It's incredible to watch a streamer just the training of keeping an audience's attention for hours, and it's not just gaming anymore either. So I think that something that you should really take some time in investigating is streaming, live streaming in general, and those channels that go around it. But specifically, when you look at like Twitch and YouTube of the game streamers, is a place where I think that brands have hesitated. They just don't understand the world as much, and if you want to get somewhere early still, and some place where you can really have a lot of impact without those algorithms, then it's a great place to start.
Yeah, agreed, Joe. I mean, I think the whole streaming and correlation to YouTube is fascinating, and I'm just blown away sometimes by the amount of influence they have, and you have these kids, these 15, 16-year-old boys who are watching these, and whatever the streamer does, they're in, right? They're in because they've already bought into that brand. So I have a son who's got, 500,000 followers on YouTube, and whatever he says, one of those overnight sensations, just so you know, guys, 6 years of overnight sensation, right? But it is such wild, wild west basically kind of world. And I think, Joe, you've hit it right on the head in terms of look at other platforms that are up and coming or different media. And that's really where a brand new company or somebody who's trying to get in has a really good foothold to be in.
It's not going to be as easy, right? Like Facebook and Instagram and all those they're popular for a reason. They've built all the plumbing. They make it so you can scale it, right? And that it makes it scalable, and it makes it doable. But you're right, Faye, if you want to put in the work, like if you get in early and put in the work, that's where you're going to find those really big gains.
Yeah, very cool.
Amy, you were saying something. I noticed you.
No, I was just agreeing. And I think, like, as we're talking about emerging platforms and gaming, like, we didn't even touch on TikTok, right? I feel like TikTok is another platform where a lot of, especially when we talked about knowing your audience in our earlier question, like if you know you want to target the Gen Z and this is where your audience is, like TikTok may be the platform for you. But, that algorithm is another beast of itself because you really, it's all about the content. I think it comes down to how engaging is that video content. And with the short attention span of most people now, you really have to capture most people's attention within the first 3 seconds, or else they're just going to scroll to the next thing. So it's really, as brand marketers, working with either influencers, making sure that they're aligning right to whatever you want to promote, but they're able to convey that message for you in an engaging way so that your message kind of does eventually get the views and hopefully gets shared and viral and whatever the case is, because the TikTok algorithm is definitely more conducive for that sharing and the views increasing.
And Amy, to add to your point with TikTok, even it's not only we've gathered some data from there as we partnered with TikTok with several brands and did a campaign across, and we got a lot more ROAS from generations that were older, so millennials. Very surprisingly, were the ones spending through TikTok, but so were Gen Zers. So, and it's definitely within the 3 seconds of that video, and there's a specific format that has been identified of how it actually grabbed traction to make the purchase. Yeah. And so setting up the right ads, and then having the influencer do it's staying on their channel. So I'm using that to boost it on Pinterest. We haven't even spoken about Pinterest yet. So the whole beast and on its own with all the features that it has now for creators and for brands, even implementing stories, or, you know, I mean, I guess there's also a lot of controversy around the whole world of Clubhouse, where there's also a lot of people in there, and now brands are jumping on. So it's like you have so many nuggets to pick from.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Amazing. So my next question will be about, the content, because, it's also about, the content that you deliver in collaboration with those influencers that you finally zero down on. So how to identify the highest performing pieces of content and analyze the elements they have in common, like, the type of content, images, video, text, basically deciding on the content type. How should the marketers go about it? And Amy, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about content development, we always say the best approach is allowing creative freedom, especially as a brand marketer. You're a brand and you're an agency representing your client, making sure that everyone is on the same page of they're content creators for a reason. They know what content resonates with their community and fans. And so when you're doing a content brief, not being too prescriptive will ultimately help the end game, right? Like having some sort of direction, of course, is part of the collaboration, because you want to make sure that they are hitting your message points, kind of understanding what they should, creatively or visually shoot or produce, but having their own spin on it makes the content so much stronger, because at the end of the day, they know how to weave in products and their messages in their like own narrative. I mean, people follow them for it's their life, right? So if we're talking about using a new blender, I'm making this up, but like using a new blender, people have probably followed that she likes doing recipes and whatever, and it just makes it more authentic. And so giving them that creative freedom to shoot however they want. And I think when we talked about some edited, Camille, was it you about edited versus unedited? I think more people are turning into this unedited, sort of approach, which is why Instagram stories is huge. People love following Instagram stories more than the in-feed because it's so glossy, so editorial. Whereas the stories, I feel like I'm watching, they're just holding the camera around, they're talking to the camera, you see like their messy house in the background, and it just feels like you're in their world. But I think as brands start to work with these influencers, you have to really understand giving them that creative freedom, because ultimately they may convert more on an unedited sort of story, right, versus a very glossy photo. So I think that's my advice for brand marketers, especially when it comes down to the content development.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. So when we talk about content type, the rise of video continues to be an ongoing trend in the influencer marketing space, but it also keeps viewers more engaged, no doubts about that. But I personally have this feeling that another way of looking at it is that it seemed to have been overdone a little to an extent. So please tell us that if video and reels and Instagram stories always work for every business, or at what point we should know and understand that it's time to maybe experiment with other content types. So Faye, what do you have to say about it? You need to unmute yourself. 1 second.
I think you're purposely muting me. I think, video's not going away. It's not going away. I don't care. Clubhouse is here, audio's here, Twitter's jumped on it, everything, but video's not going away. Video done well is always going to be premium in terms of reaching people. But video done poorly is the challenge. And I think the media has said, you know, you must be on video or you're not going to influence anyone. And the problem is there's a lot of people who shouldn't be on media. We all agree with that, right? So if you're really good at the medium, then the brand that you're representing will be seen as exactly how the brand wants to be seen. But, you know, forcing an influencer to say, okay, we want this in media, and that's not their thing, isn't going to work for you. So, I mean, as a brand, as the business that is responsible for the product or the service you're selling, the onus is on you. You need to understand what that influencer is good at and what they're not. So don't force something that just doesn't come organically.
Right. So, and I would like to ask this to Valerie. Are you a video person or not a video person, or you like to mix up, or, you know, make it a good mix of video plus maybe another content types like a blog and, you know, things like that? How do you go about it?
Yeah, so I actually, I'm fine with video. I enjoy it a lot, but I'm also a big fan of content that's in written form as well. So I like to make sure that it's paired both ways. So, and I also am a big fan of taking content that's created in one way and maximizing it as much as possible. So, you know, when I'm putting together a content strategy with a client, you know, we might create a video first that we can then break into multiple smaller types of videos. So smaller clips that could be put on different platforms in different ways over the course of time. And then that content is also able to be broken into a longer blog post that explains it in that way. And then you can always take that into the other sound bites for Twitter posts and tweets, and, you know, create visuals that go for Instagram. So, you know, when you parallel that in the influencer space, I would think about, you know, some of the kind of short form, you know, passing content, like a story that, you know, might be up and have a great life while it's alive, but what's something that could last a little bit longer? So I like to diversify my approach. So when I'm working with an influencer, we might have, you know, plenty of stories and reels and stuff that is up for the season that the campaign's running, but then we have a few pieces that are more anchoring that last longer. So I just try to kind of have that approach, even if the longer form content isn't as viral in the moment. It's something that's going to continue to drive traffic and continue to be something we can point back to time and time again after that influencer campaign is done, because I want to get the best bang for my buck when I'm running a campaign. And so I want to think not just in the short term, but the long term as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Valerie, I completely agree. I feel like marketers have to understand, while Instagram Reels and all these things are so hot at the moment, it's just understanding the longevity of the content. And so when we, you know, service our clients and our partners, many of the influencers also have their own domains, right? They're bloggers and they have their own blog. And so a lot of what we're seeing on our end, because we are rooted in affiliate marketing, we see a lot of conversion happen on the blogs, because to your point, they're long form content. There's more like real estate to even share more links or talk about, you know, tell more about the product and your brand. But the influencers, they're savvy business women and or men, right? They like to point back. They have their newsletters. They re-promote old blog posts. There's obviously a search functionality on their blog. So it is more evergreen, and there's more moments and opportunities for them, to your point, Valerie, whether the brand is pointing back to it or the influencer, they're promoting their old content. It just makes it more of a long form, long-term sort of approach to kind of, you know, promote a brand and or, you know, extend the life of a partnership, basically.
What's interesting? Go ahead, Valerie. Go ahead. I was going to
say, when you do that, you know, and you have stuff on their website and they have your stuff on theirs, like it's also an opportunity for your site to rank better on Google. So it's beyond just a social media strategy. It's more of a big picture marketing.
Absolutely.
I was just going to ask you, Valerie, what do you see as the differentiation in that market? Like, who's reading your blog in a specific brand? Have you ever seen who's reading the blog versus who's watching the video, demographic wise?
You know, I think the decision makers who have the credit cards ready to pull out, often they are going to the websites. And so, you know, you might catch their attention first with the short form content, but then you're going to keep their attention and get them to make that conversion later by sending them somewhere that's off social media. I've also found just the older you go, the more people tend to want to just go back to the website, you know, because we're just, that's just kind of the way I think we all operate, and the way we've adopted you know, the technology over the years is that we consume it on social, and then we go to the website to purchase. Younger generations are understanding that they can purchase maybe directly through the platform, and that they're not as fearful of putting credit card information in something like that, or using alternative payment options. So it's definitely, I think it's definitely an age thing, and it's just a matter of being comfortable with the technology, and also just how we have learned to use technology over the years. I mean, I remember learning to write an essay with a pen and paper, and then having to relearn how to kind of think in front of a computer, versus just typing up my report when it was done being written. So, you know, younger generations are used to thinking in front of a screen, whereas, you know, if you're a millennial or older, you had to kind of learn that a second time. So it is an interesting demographic study for sure.
Yeah. I just find it fascinating because, you know, the younger ones will click on anything on Instagram and buy it. They don't even know where they're buying from. They have no idea. They just click the button, right? I'm buying it. Whereas you're right, like most a little bit older are going to say, let me see if these guys are legit. I think I'm going to go back to the website and see if I actually want to put my credit card in. It's a fascinating approach. It's a fascinating piece to study. Just as a brand, whoever you may be, you might be the ones that need that one single image, right, on Instagram that somebody will click and buy. And then depending on your brand, you might be the one that needs to have a whole landing page of specific information that says, you know, okay, now I'm comfortable enough to purchase.
Amazing. Yes, please. Yes, Joe.
Yeah, and Amy had a great point that got me thinking too. With, I mean, you just said newsletter, right? Like, it's crazy. Email is not done for.
No.
Sometimes I wish it was. But it is. It can be extremely impactful, and video is such a great net, right? It's such a great place to kind of get people's interest whenever they're whenever they can, take in that video, right? That's something that you have to consume in a certain way. And those newsletters and the blogs and everything, that comes afterwards. That's that follow-up, you're following through. So not only things like Substack and monetization, influencers monetizing email is fascinating point that always think about those different channels that are surrounding your influencer, because a lot of people aren't. They're just wanting to buy the thing that they're biggest on. And the most engaged followers are in following them everywhere.
Yeah,
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are halfway there, guys, and it's amazing. These insights are so valuable. I'm sure that the attendees are enjoying this. But it's time to mid-roll and to break for a minute or two. I hope the attendees are enjoying the session. Before we move forward, I would like to give a quick shout out to Designhill, who are using creative marketing and organizing this event. All right, we're back again. Um, and before we jump back to the questions again, I would like to ask attendees if they do not have any questions or all their questions are getting answered, because I can see questions tab completely empty. Guys, please ask your questions, and we have a lovely, panel who would love to answer your questions. All right. So, going back to the questions section, we're gonna talk more about the return on investment of all these influencer marketing campaigns that we do on, social media and on the internet as marketers. The basic questions is, how to measure the ROI. Also, do you think currently there is a lack of metrics availability to measure an influencer marketing campaign, especially on Insta and YouTube, where the followership is huge, but at the end of it, you do not feel sometimes that kind of impact being made, right? So how do you cope up with that, and how to go about it? Camila, can we start with you?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that has come in handy when identifying campaign KPIs or just building up your report is more on what was your initial goal. So for instance, focusing on website traffic or clicks to site. If we're having something where it's, let's say on Instagram stories, well, how many swipe ups was it driven through one frame, or which type of frame drove more of those swipe ups for their audience to engage with. A lot of times we have had interesting concepts where in several instances you find that the influencer, their audience won't actually swipe up on their frame, but if we're sharing similar content that we have the influencer creating for the brand and we push it at the same time that they're also talking about the brand, we'll have a greater reach of new consumers or sessions to the site than if we didn't share it at the same time. So it's almost thinking holistically. If you're having a lot of, like, let's say a bigger campaign where there are 15 influencers active for one campaign, and let's say you want to launch a product, it's also being mindful of, well, how many influencers do you want to showcase at the same time? Because it could get a little too overwhelming. So rather spreading them out and understanding the longevity of the campaign. So how long do you really want that to be alive? And then when you're really looking at their metrics, having each influencer curate content that is truthful and natural to their own persona on their platforms. So maybe, you're striving for traffic to site, but to add to Valerie's point and Amy's point, there are other methods. So like you can write a blog for one, the other one could do maybe a podcast, the other one could be also pointing to an affiliate link that maybe it's driving to, whatever it is that they feel most comfortable sending their audience, whether your brand has an Amazon platform or they have a storefront there. So that could be a good way to also engage with an audience on Amazon. That's another whole umbrella that, has a huge potential and scope where you can build so many strategies, going live on Amazon and having that product visibility, whether it's like a texture product, right? So if they're live on Amazon, how many viewers were engaging? How many sales did you get from that? So a lot of success also measuring in that. So if you're building campaigns, from my experience, making them into campaigns where you can have traffic campaigns and then engagement campaigns. So you're never bummed out, let's say, for lack of a better word, of your expectations of a campaign, but rather segment them out so that you really do truthfully get the best for each campaign. So it's boosting that focus. So that's one of the things that I would suggest.
All right, Amy, I would love if you can add to that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Camilla hit it on the head of just like understanding your KPIs and knowing focusing each campaign so that, listen, I feel like influencers as a whole, they could be full funnel, right? They could be brand awareness, or you can use them to be lower funnel conversion. And I think it goes back to the types of influencers that you're working with, because I think different types of influencers can provide a different benefit for the brand and what you're trying to achieve. It's just knowing that, maybe the influencers with high reach, but a super, high engagement rate would be good for community building and or reach and or content, because they have like beautiful content that you can, I'm sure Camilla, you kind of just said it, like repurpose on paid media or on your website. And that's how we're partnering with them. And then there's like the nano and micro influencers who have smaller communities, but maybe their conversion rates are super high. And that they fulfill that need of just making those transactions and really recommending a product and saying this, I love the skincare, whatever the case is. And then they just buy it. And so, at Shop Style Collective, we have 30,000 influencers in our network. And so when we work with our influencers and connect them to our brands, we're actually seeing that lower tier convert because of the sheer nature of they are just so close to their audience, and it just goes back to the content, right? They're just more real with them. There's so much to it. I feel like there's no exact formula, but I feel like parsing out different campaigns, to Camilla's point, or different strategies based on what you need will help you cover the broad spectrum of like brand awareness all the way to lower funnel conversion.
Right. Faye, I have this hypothetical situation for you, and it was asked by one of the registrants, and I found this question really, really amazing, at the same time interesting. So here's this hypothetical situation about measuring the ROI of an influencer marketing campaign. So suppose you have done everything right, you have found out the right influencers, you have zeroed down on the content type and your content strategy, and there are 2 influencer marketing campaigns that you have built, and you did the one campaign does exceedingly well and another one goes completely kaput, and all the preparation was same. Both the campaigns belong to the same organization, same product. So now, how to understand and analyze the situation? What should be the key learnings from this? What should be the first steps that a marketer should analyze?
Well, I think the first step that everyone has to understand in the global arena right now is that there are no pure right and wrong answers. I mean, things change on a daily basis, and we all know that. So what worked yesterday might not be working today, and it might be a subtle shift in who you're using as an influencer or how it was presented. Right? There might be a difference in how the video went, and a difference in terms of if it was a podcast reach that you haven't really, you think it was the same presentation, but actually there was a subtle piece that wasn't. And I think you need to go through it step by step and understand what that subtlety was that made the difference. Because, when we look at it as holistically adjust, well, they're both the same. No, they're actually not. And I think Amy has more experience on that because she has a lot of influencers that she's working with. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah. In regards to Faye, what was the last part that you said?
So if you have what someone believes it is the same campaign running, but one works and one doesn't, what's the first thing you can look at?
Yeah. I mean, from a brand perspective, I feel like the biggest thing, especially with influencers, is that not all campaigns will probably, I always think it's also a test and learn, right? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be specific to your brand. And that's why brand marketers have to understand it's not a one-time thing. I feel like some get discouraged when they work with influencers for the first time. If it's a heavy investment, it doesn't work. And you're like, I'm never doing it again. Whereas you have to remember, they are real people. You're actually working with other people that could, it's almost like they are an extension of your marketing team. That's what I like to think about it, right? They're the ones at the front lines to your core consumer and your audience. So like at the end of the day, if one didn't work or one worked, I think it's like understanding what didn't work and taking those key learnings and then applying it to the next one. But I think over time, marketers do have to understand that I firmly believe that this space isn't going to go. It's just going to change. What worked yesterday isn't going to be tomorrow, and so forth. As many of these platforms evolve or change their algorithm, like there's just so much that we're at the mercy of these social media platforms. But I think the influencers have to understand, as long as they have their domain, Joe, we talked about the newsletter, building their community. As long as they have that, the brands can always tap to those, and I think that those will be influencers that will be the strongest long term as they think about their business. So yeah, it's just investing in them in the right approach. That obviously is budget friendly to whatever brand has, but of course, just making sure you continue the conversation with these influencers, because I don't think that they're going away anytime soon.
No, but I also think that the audiences are just smarter, right? They're
Absolutely.
smarter. They can see if somebody's truly engaged in that brand or they're just there for the money, right? I mean, it's the truth. I hate to say it out loud, but they're smart, and the younger the audience, the smarter they are.
Yep. I will say because of these influencers, a lot of them now, especially in the past year, have been very particular with the brand partnerships that they are accepting. They will turn down. I think it's not when you reach to a certain echelon, you're in a position to turn down money, right? But I do think that the ones really do have integrity of really promoting things that they do love versus shelling out something they don't love, for example, because I think that they know their readers can see through them. So they almost don't want to be called out by their fans, because that's the bigger fear, right? They don't want to be promoting something where they can be called out potentially or what have you. So I do think that they are good about turning away campaigns and or money down for the right reasons, I think, because there's so many influencers now. I feel like it's just, you have to stay true to your core, platform and or brand.
Absolutely. Right. So, Valerie, I have a question for you. Since we're talking about return on investment of influencer marketing campaign, we also know that there are a couple of tools in the market like Lumano, where you actually can go and use it, pay for it, and then measure in a way how a particular influencer marketing campaign worked for you. So how do you think they work? If you have used any such tool, would you recommend any specific tool to measure the impact?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is just the fact that you can measure all of these metrics. We compare this to traditional advertising tactics, and or if you are using an influencer, to use more traditional tactics. Digital allows you the ability to track all of this. So whether you are requesting reports directly from the influencer or you're using one of those platforms, I think it's just vital that you make that part of the process, that you are going to measure and keep everyone accountable, and not just for the purpose of, I'm going to crack down on, if the metrics aren't good, but it's just like with any business practice, it's better to have that just upfront of this is what we're going to do. So I do think, using some of those platforms are really helpful. I've found great success with them. I've also found great success in just paying attention and having our own metrics measured. So we know what our baseline is before we run a campaign, to know, okay, we had this huge spurt of activity. We know that that's an increase because we know what it was before and we know what it went back to. And then also, I think this is one thing that I see across social media all the time, is just people forget to pay attention to their website traffic. It's such a simple metric that we can measure on a basic level for free with Google Analytics.
Right.
But a lot of people forget to pay attention, and they forget to see okay, well, where did we go from? We ran this influencer campaign. Maybe the social stats weren't super impressive, but it drove a lot of traffic to our shop. To me, that's a success. I don't care if it didn't look viral on social media, but it drove sales on my website. To me, that's a success. And a lot of people are just looking for the vanity metrics, and they forget that it really matters what the return is. And sometimes you don't see that on how many people swiped up, or how many people were viewing a video. You have to look at the metrics that are actually driving real results for what your campaign goals were.
I think I can add to that in regard to the swipe ups and UTMs, providing the influencers with the right UTMs, not only letting them to fend for themselves and grab the link and that's it, but rather, you be able to give them a trackable link that shows you what was the content that best performed in regard to your goal, right? So whether it's I want traffic to site and you notice that one type of specific format of content actually perform better, you can then, for the follow-up campaign that it should be planned, or that you plan on having with X influencer, whoever it may be, creates content that resembles that past successful metric that it was that you were impressed by, or something that you see that it was successful. There are a few questions on the little question tab right here that are really interesting. Carrie right here is asking several questions, so I just wanted to answer her question really fast. She's just pretty much asking about how long does it take, the process to creating content and campaigns. So like conceptualizing the influencer campaign, building a creative brief, which is a great question because we all talk about building briefs and campaign, all of this ideation going on, but we never really speak about how long it takes or what is the process behind it. So I feel like that's something that's super insightful, and for each his own. So it's almost like it takes time, and it depends on whether you're on a brand side or whether you're an agency side. And I don't know if any of you here would want to pitch in on that. I have my own experience from the brand side as well as independently. So from the brand side, I would say, to answer the question, it has taken from what is 1 week, or you have to hustle and get it out within 3 days, and it all depends on whether it's for a product launch that it's happening, like let's say in Q3 or Q4. If it's to bring a bigger picture for a holiday campaign, a holiday, what you're going to launch for, mainly usually it's 6 months in advance. So you have 6 months to really create how you want to position this whole campaign for influencers for up to 6 months in advance. So it's like you have a long time, but then you also have to be mindful that social changes so frequently that maybe you have an entire plan and then it gets to the time to launch and it's completely different because the space has changed or adjusted in a different way. So then you have to think quickly and reevaluate that aspect of things. So it could really be dependent on what you're working with and what your goals are.
Mm-hmm. And I like to add to that, I feel like from a timing perspective, I feel like it's also different. You have to, especially when it comes to like a big moment like holidays, sometimes these influencers, think about it, they have their platforms and they actually don't want to have sponsored content everywhere, right? So it's almost getting in and getting ahead of the game and booking them. So yeah, securing them, booking them so that you have your spot, or else sometimes this happened last year, to be honest, with some of our influencers where they did have to turn down campaigns to our clients. And we told our clients, you came in too late because they have their editorial calendars booked, right? They plan everything in advance. They have to shoot it. They have to produce it. There's obviously content that needs to be approved by the brand. Camilla, I'm sure you're approving content and everything before it goes live. And so it's just one of those things to keep in mind that they are working on their own their own platform with a content calendar. So the more advanced you could plan with them, I think it makes a stronger campaign. So no one's rushed at the end or whatever. But that's what we see. But sometimes, yeah, they do book up, which is also good thing for, it's a good thing for them. But sometimes you have to find replacement influencers or whatever the case is.
It's also the exclusivity. So I think that's another thing we haven't touched on, where influencers or their managers will ask, what's the scope that we want to use the influencer for? So what's the exclusive terms that you want to work with? Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about how long does it take? Well, it depends on also what is it that you're asking them to do. So whether it's just a post and then they can post 3 days after with another brand, or whether you want that influencer to really be only for speaking for your brand for, like, let's say 3 months. So it just depends on how is the strategy that you're building the partnerships with influencers. And again, it goes back to what are your goals, what is the specific metric that you're looking for, and then you can set aside, okay, these influencers are for content marketing. We're not really focused on, it's okay if they post for other brands, that's fine, but maybe these are like the really spokespersons for the brand, so they need to use us for a certain time. So it really just depends on how the brands are working and what is the expectation.
Absolutely. And I can listen to this like the whole day. The insights are so amazing, but we got to move. And Joe, so this is the last question before we take up questions from the questions tab. Um, we see that there are so many influencers, and we also see that they have been abused at the hands of some brands who just want to pay for their audiences, usually with uh, giveaways, contests, which may not be required and needed every time. But if we see the most genuine long-term influencers, they are very protective of their audiences, and they just do not agree to each and everything that is being sold to them. I want to particularly talk on relationship management, partnership. How can marketers earn their trust, influencers' trust, by being worthy of it, and consider long-term influencer marketing a partnership?
I mean, I've been doing the influencer thing before Facebook at Red Bull, right? Like Red Bull, when it came into North America, I was there, and yes, everybody, influencers was a thing. There, we just, talked to them in real life. It was really weird. I'd go to the skate store and give Red Bull and talk and build relationships. And it's always stuck with me. I think that part of my early part of my career has always stuck with me, is because you just got to, it's like tending a garden, right? If you want fast results, you can get them. You can treat this like a media buy, and you're going to have, it'll be very transactional, and that's fine. That's great. And if those match your goals, amazing. The part that I've always been into, and that's been my place, is the long-term relationship building, right? Like starting from the inside out and really building those longer-term relationships like a garden where you can tend later, but it takes a lot more work in the upfront, right? So I think you really just have to look at putting in and it's tough for a lot of brands, larger brands, to commit past to campaigns, right? Like, because we're so used to media and campaigns and short term, but really you gotta it's a commitment. If you really want to have those relationships, it's a commitment, and it's not just talking business. It's, are you in the back and forth are you watching the content? Do you know what's going on in their lives? Do they know what's going on in your lives? This is in the best places ever. It is a product that the influencer or the ambassador just loves and uses on a daily basis, and they're just talking about the stuff that they love, and it starts small, and then it gets to really cool places, right? But it just doesn't happen overnight.
Right. Amazing. Please feel free to add in to this question, the relationship management with the influencer. Faye, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I think, I agree with Joe completely. Absolutely. It's about building a relationship, but on the other end as well, he had started with the point that you just have to know who you're working with. And for some people, it is transactional, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's this misconception that, everybody has to be, building a relationship and in it for life. That's not true. I mean, some people don't want to do that. So you need to understand, as a brand and as the person you're working with, are you talking the same language? And if you are, cool. But, don't think that just because somebody is strictly business and it's transactional, that it's not right, right? It's what's right for you as a brand and what's right for you as an influencer. So, just make sure that you understand both sides.
Right. All right. We're quickly moving to the questions tab, and I can see that Valerie and Camila have answered a few of them, but let's also take views of the other panelists as well. There's this question asked by Lara. How can you potentiate a business if it's small and do not have enough budget to make a campaign and paid ads? Amy, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I feel like in the beginning, if you are small and you don't have budget, I think that there are a lot of creative ways and to sort of outreach, I think, you know, I used to work in PR. So I think it comes down to that traditional sort of word of mouth and pitching, where you could really reach out to, you know, a potential group of influencers that you really want to introduce your brand or product to, and just have that real, Joe, I love what you said, just like that real life conversation of like, you know, you following them following you, just like really it's a relationship building moment at that point, because then later your hope is that they do love your brand and, or, you know, really fall in love with the product, that they will hopefully, you know, use it, right? And you know, and a lot of them, you know, these influencers are influencers for a reason. They're sharing what they love, right? Outside of brand deals, they start it because they're sharing what they love and recommendations. So I think that part is crucial in building the relationship. I think everything now hinges on the relationship between a brand and influencer, because there's so much value in that beyond just a transactional thing. And then hopefully in the long end, you know, as you grow your business, hopefully you do have some budget to do some smaller initiatives and or sampling efforts. But I think in the beginning, it maybe is a little scrappier, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done, right? Because I think that there's a lot of creative ways to reach out to these influencers. They want to be, you know, they want to hear from brands, their emails, their DMs, however way that you can get to them. I think that is key, but it's about crafting your story and making sure you stand out, you know, especially if you're a product that it exists and there's so many competitors. What makes your product and brand different from the other ones? And I think it comes down to whether it's the founder, the story behind it, ingredients, whatever the case is. I know sustainability is huge now. Everyone loves to hear about, you know, the sustainable efforts of packaging or the sourcing of it, like ingredients, whatever. So, you know, it just depends on what you know would resonate with that target influencer, so to speak.
And real quick, it's whenever you're doing those reaching out, if you really want, if you're being scrappy, don't fall for the copy and paste, right? And I've stolen so much from PR, and it makes so much sense because the PR and publicity is completely a part of what's going on right now, right at its core with relationship, but. Yes, don't think that just by getting out to a ton of people that you can copy and paste and just send a cold and not personal message. You know, always try to mention something in the last three posts that they made, or something in the video that they went, if you want to catch attention. So just be smart, because influencers like to be, you know, they want to be thanked and that somebody's listening to. So if you want to get more, then definitely personalize.
Yes. So that is, the personalization is key, because I feel like they get so many that they know what's a copy and paste. You know, they get so many messages.
Yes.
And yeah, to your point, they like to be, I don't know what the word is, buttered up a bit, you know, just like, so.
They're like royalty for the brand.
Yes.
We all do. We all like to be, you know, like we all like to be.
Yeah.
Feeling pampered and spoiled.
Correct.
Speaking of the copy pasting thing, we kind of tried it, you know, with my own personal very small startup, and what I got to know at the end of the day, that nobody received those messages because Instagram algorithm, they blocked me. The copy paste, this exact copy pasted message was being blocked and nobody received it. So that was my learning, and then that's when I realized the importance of personalization. Right. So we will take up the last question. We are already ahead of time, 10 minutes ahead. So the last question of the session would be by Jenilyn. It is given that different industries require a different approach when it comes to selling them in the market. In general, can you give us advice on what set of skills or qualities to focus on for anyone who's aspiring or planning on creating an effective social media content? That's a pretty long question, but I hope that you guys actually understood this. Faye, would you like to answer that?
Well, it's it's a big question, and
you want me to recite it once again for you?
No. I just mean in terms of it's a big question with a ginormous answer to it, because what you're asking is what would work for just about anything in any industry, and it's not that easy to answer, because really it comes down to understanding where you are in the marketplace, where your brand lies, what your product or service is, and who your target market is. It's not any different than old school marketing. You got to start from the start, right? And understand exactly where you are. So I wish I could give you a one size fits all answer, but I think it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I mean, I did add here for that question that it would be all about mainly providing value. So we hear that left and right, where it's like provide value, but what is valuable? Because you're like value. So it's almost like understanding really what is the pain point, and then going through each piece of content, really purposefully thinking about what it's serving. Each post is going to tackle each area. So not trying to make one piece of content for all, but rather split it up.
Yeah. And I would just say focus on learning the mediums, practice making videos, practice making podcasts, write blogs, become a better writer, become a better designer, because then you can apply that regardless of what your topic is. And so, as you're building out this audience, just get out there and make stuff. I mean, one of my favorite podcasters wrote a book called Start Ugly. And it's, it's just the concept of like, go out and make bad videos. But every video that you make from there is going to be better and better and better. Go practice making reels. Your first one might be really, really rough, but
and it will be.
It's going to get better. So if you are just starting up and you want to become an influencer and you want to be, getting paid for sponsorships and things, go start, just go do the work. Go do the work, get better and better, learn the craft, read books, listen to podcasts. There's a lot you can learn by following other gurus out there online. There's a lot of great resources out there. Go do the work.
Yeah, and it's no different on the brand side, right? You can rejig as you go, right? You might think you know your message and it fell flat, so change it. Ask people why it fell flat and go from there.
Absolutely. Amazing. Like I said, we're already 15 minutes ahead of the session, which kind of, the testimony to the fact that it went really well. Like I said, I can listen to this on and on and on, but we got to end this here. Thank you so much, each one of you. It was very lovely to have you all here. Any last thoughts? And this is open for all. Please, any last thoughts about the session? Any piece of advice for our audiences? Please go ahead. We'll start with you, Joe.
Thanks, everybody. It's a great way to wake up in the morning is being surrounded by such smart and fun professionals. And thanks for everybody to joining us. And thanks so much. And please, if you have more questions, connect with any of us. I'm sure in anywhere on social, it's not hard to find us. And looking forward to next time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming here today, this early in the morning. All right. Faye, any last thoughts?
I just think to everyone, just go out there and have some fun with it. This isn't a life or death situation, right? Don't worry about if you get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. You try again. So just go out there. Don't think that you must know everything, because no one does.
And start ugly,
Start
like
small.
Valerie said. Start ugly. There's no harm in starting ugly and then learning on the go. Valerie, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for giving me a great start to my day, because it's pretty early where I am. But I just also, go start ugly. Just don't be afraid. I remember when I first started my business, I would invite my friends and family who I knew wouldn't laugh at me to engage with my stuff. And then I slowly got more and more brave to invite other people and then strangers and really put myself out there. And, do whatever you need to start building confidence. And that starts with baby steps every single day. So go out, be consistent, and start making those steps.
Right. Camila?
Yeah, I think it's all about being humble and just believing in yourself. Really, it's all it takes to really take that leap of faith and share with everyone. So thank you so much. Super thrilled to be here and starting the day in a great note.
Amy?
Yeah, just to echo everyone's point and sentiment, it was great to have this chat early in the morning here in New York City. But at the end of the day, honestly, I feel like the best takeaway and advice is just to also be kind. I feel like, you know, we used to say it's PR, not ER, especially when you're working on influencer campaigns. Some things may go wrong and you can just figure it out because we're all people and we're all human and everything's workable, right? So kind of just take it easy and be kind, and all the campaigns will eventually, you know, be a success.
All right, amazing. Faye, did we? Okay. I mean, I don't know. I just saw you saying something, so all right.
Probably talking to myself as usual.
Not a problem. All right. So this was indeed a value-packed session, guys. Thank you once again. There's a lot more that we could have learned and covered here. Unfortunately, we are limited by time. I hope all the attendees loved the session. Once again, I would like to say thank you. And this is actually not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you in the coming days. The next event is on 10x Your Business Impact, Eliminate Drama and Find Your Freedom. It's going to be a keynote session by a very good speaker and expert. So if you guys are interested and haven't registered yet, my colleague Robin will be putting the link of the session in the chat box. Please register. To stay updated with events like these, you can follow us on an Instagram. Please give us suggestions on the topics you would like us to cover and the speakers you want us to host. We're going to try our level best to get them to you. We are also dropping the link of our Instagram page in the chat section. To watch this session and other such wonderful events, subscribe to our events section on designhill.com/events. Or you can also subscribe to our official YouTube channel, the link of which will be again in the chat box. For all the designers and artists who are listening to this and wish to be a part of this thriving design community, please visit designhill.com. And last but not the least, there is this, you know, the very good design challenges that we have launched recently, which are worth $7,000 and more. Any designer, non-designer can be a part of it. Please participate and earn for yourself. Lastly, please use coupon code LMAI15 to avail 15% discount on Logo Maker. It is valid till 27th May. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined us here today. Please take care, guys, and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.